Kim White with the My Sexy Business team. I am here at the Hope to Hope conference with my sweet co-host, Kristi Bridges from One Moment Live. She makes me do all the work. We are excited to be here again. I know y'all are probably sick of me saying I'm excited, but I am excited, and I'm thrilled with our next guest coming on. Last minute, we had an adjustment in the schedule, so we had to do a last minute thing. I'm thrilled, but we are having today. We are having technical difficulties, so the reason we're celebrating is because she couldn't hear us. We could hear her, but she couldn't hear us. Now we've got that worked out. I want to introduce you to. I want to
all my stuff out from behind me.
I want to introduce you to the founder of Untapped Strengths and the creator of the Vulnerability Warrior. She helps. I'm having to read it because I want to make sure I get it right.
No worries, and I'm going to keep working on making sure I have everything set up on this end properly. So keep going.
Angela Stillwell helps businesses and individuals create deeper connections with their audience so that they build better relationships and enhance overall results. She has decades of experience with coaching and sales, consulting, marketing, business development. She's got it going on, is what I'm saying. Startups to large corporations. She has been, well, and I have to say there's lots more to tell about this little girl. We actually met at a conference, and I knew, and I think it's been 4 years ago. I was trying to remember the dates. I think it
was 2 years ago.
2 years ago? Well, it was this month, I think. 2 years ago.
No, it was during the summer. So yeah, so this summer will be, actually it hasn't even quite been 2 years. Or has it been? Yeah, it was during the summer. Because it was it was in about August. Well, August of 16.
16.
So
okay.
It hasn't even been 2 years.
Oh my goodness. Well, I'm thinking it's been 4. Very
is that like time flies? Or, oh my God, this is dragging on and on and on?
No, definitely not. I knew when I met you that we would do something together, and I laughed at myself at the time because I wasn't doing any of the things that I'm doing now, like in this way. And so I kind of giggled because I made a meme, and I've been actually talking about you on this conference.
Oh, Lord.
I quoted you a couple different times during the different sessions, and one of them was so funny because we were talking about some things that we don't want to share all of this part, but we were talking about some discrepancies basically in the workplace, and how I was a female in the oil field, and you had told me to tell them that I was a little girl with a big bank account. And I took that and made a meme out of it, and it has circulated. People steal it from me all the time. And so you didn't know you were making history when you said that.
I just love that. I remember you just reacting to that so great. And I thought, oh, Lord, I say that kind of stuff all the time. I never know what's going to come out of my mouth.
Well, it's funny because this whole conference is about giving hope. This conference came from, and for anyone listening that doesn't already know this conference came from, my son passed away almost 17 years ago. And Wednesday would have been his 30th birthday. And so we always celebrate, we always do something. And this conference evolved out of those celebrations. It evolved into the place of, we kind of have strong rules. We don't sell anything. We don't recruit. We don't anything, We want to make sure that it's really giving hope.
Right.
To people. Now, if you want to make connections and do business, that's great.
Place for it.
But we always, make sure that everyone listening knows that it's free to watch, it's free to, to come on and all of those things, because I want them to be able to let their guard down and be able to connect. We have an amazing circle. That's the bottom line. We have an amazing circle, and we're basically giving them access to these amazing people that have these great stories. And
that's such a great thing. I mean, that's what servant leadership is about, right?
Yes. Well,
coming
our
from a heart-centered
tagline,
place.
I think you in particular need to know our tagline. That it's the Hope to Hope Conference, and it's for the power of vulnerability.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. That is so great.
I think it's funny that you are a vulnerability warrior. I love that. Warrior. That's pretty cool. So tell us about that. Tell us what that means.
Okay. Well, it's the name of a program that I have done. And I have typically taught it live online. I've done it where there've been it's a group of people, and I've done it over 6 weeks, and usually it runs a couple of weeks extra because I'll do a bonus Q&A or something like that. But it's a program that I put together because people think of vulnerability as a weakness, and there's a quote by, and I'm going to completely screw this up because it's been a while since I've looked at the quote itself. But there's a quote that says, "It is within our vulnerable strength," and it's by, I think it's Freud. It's either Carl Jung or Freud. It's been a while since I've looked at it. I usually use it in my materials, and it's been a while since I looked at it. So yeah, it's either Freud or Jung.
And what was that? Repeat it again, so that people can catch that.
It is within your vulnerabilities that you find your strength.
Fantastic.
That's exactly this conference.
That is.
Yeah, because it's where it's the things that bring us to our knees that either make you or break you, and it's completely your choice.
Yes.
And when people haven't heard that, then where do they realize, where can they get the information that, just because you're down doesn't mean you can't get back up.
Yes. Yes.
It's your duty to get back up. There's only one of you in the whole universe that will ever be made. You're already the best that there was. When people say, when people say you're 1 in a million, I'm like, no, I'm 1 in 300 million, because there was 300 million sperm that went after the egg that was part of me. So I'm at least 1 in 300 million. Do not downgrade me to 1 in a million.
Right. I just love you.
So.
Well, but where did that come from? Because that didn't come from a place of being strong. That came from a place of being vulnerable, to get there. Can you tell us that?
Yeah, to actually get to that point was when I was going through my separation and divorce several years ago. I've now been divorced for, this summer will be 5 years. But let me tell you, we were separated for about 3 years prior to that. And we'd been married. By the time the divorce was final, we had been married for 22 years. So it wasn't like a short-lived marriage. I got married when I was 3, by the way. I was a real child bride.
You are so cute.
They talk about child brides, but I really was a child bride. I'm totally kidding. You guys, I'll be 50. How old am I now? I'll be 52 this year. So yeah, I'm no spring chicken.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
So anyway, going through that divorce, I found myself feeling so broken. And, I'm not saying that there definitely wasn't any one of us who was particularly at fault. We were both at fault. I'm not going to point the fingers at anybody. There were things on both sides that were at fault, right? And anybody who's gone through that, if they don't see that, then they need to come and talk to me, because there's no one side to anything like that. It takes two, right? Anyway, so as I was going through that process, and I really started doing introspective work and, really thinking about, gosh, Ange, you went through so much as a child. What is it that has you feeling? You okay?
Yeah. Just dealing with a little coughing.
Well, about a week ago, I would not have been able to do this. I had completely lost my voice and had a hacking cough, so I totally get it.
I can relate.
Yeah. But I started thinking, and y'all, I'm sorry, my eyes are watering. My allergies are crazy right now. Anyway, but I was thinking, Ange, as a kid, you had gone through so much. What was it that is now making you feel so broken? And as I did that work, and gosh, I did yoga like crazy. I was reading like crazy. I got back in my Bible. I got back in all kinds. I was looking all over the place. Okay, how do I re-find myself or refine myself? That's a new word, by the way. Refine.
I like it.
Rediscover myself. Because as a child, you guys, I had, between kindergarten and my senior year of high school, I went to 13 different schools. The last time I counted, I had moved over 60 times. Understand something. I've been in the house that I'm in now for 23 years now. So 60 times.
Wow.
Before the last 23 years, right?
Yep.
I mean, there were times that I would go to school and I'm like, I'm going to ride the bus home, and I don't know if they're going to be in the same house. I don't know if that's going to be home when I get home. And, but I was a straight A student. I didn't miss class except for when we were moving, and, my parents were divorced when I was 10, and then my dad remarried almost immediately, and that's a whole other story. I won't get into all of that. And then my mom met a guy that none of us liked. Absolutely none of us liked. And so I was about 11 at the time when she met this guy, and she brings him over. And I remember laying on the floor, and this is to prove that I really am as old as I am. I was watching like The Love Boat or Fantasy Island or something like that. The original version. I don't know if those have been remade. The big thing right now is for those kinds of shows to be remade. But these were the originals, the little short hair, the tour guide, and Gopher, and all of those people that were that were on The Love Boat.
With the Shirley Temple drink.
Right. So, and I don't know how I just remembered the name Gopher. What is that? Oh my
love it.
So I'm laying there on the floor watching this, and she opens the door, and I look up, and I just think, this big man, 6'3", just kind of darkened the door frame as he walks in. And I got up and I went to my room as my mom was introducing me to him. And she got really upset with me. And she comes in my room and she's like, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Mama, there's something wrong with that man." And she was like, "No, you are just being hateful. This is about your dad and blah, blah, blah." And I was like, "No, Mama, I'm telling you, there is something wrong with this man." And I told the first time I told this story, you guys, was a couple of years ago. So I never really used to share all of this. But anyway, so about a year goes by, and they had gotten married, and she got pregnant right away. And she sent my brother and I to go live with my dad. Now, you have to understand something. My dad was not exactly the best person on the face of the earth either. He was the reason we were moving all the time, and he's still alive, so I'm not going to go into a whole lot of that. but my stepfather was abusive in all kinds of ways. And he was abusive to me. He was abusive to my mom. He was abusive to his own children. He's abusive to my brother. And my mom was like, go live with your dad. That's a better alternative. And, to send your children to go live with someone that has had affairs and has done all of these things on an ongoing basis, what a choice to make, right?
Right.
And so, we did. We went to live with my dad, and there were times when we would go visit my mom, and he would threaten to kill my dad when my dad was coming to pick us up. And one time he locked us in a bedroom and was threatening my mom. He had my mom pinned down in a chair before he locked us in the room. And I climbed out the window and ran down the street to a payphone. And at the time I was about, 12 years old. Okay, so this had not been very long into everything, 12, maybe 13 years old. And I called my dad. I called collect to my grandparents' house. That was back when there weren't cell phones and all that kind of stuff. And you called collect and you said, will you accept this call? Blah, 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 blah. People today don't even really know what that means, to call collect. But so I call and I'm like, here's what's going on. And I called my mom's parents and I called my dad's parents. So I called both sets of my grandparents, and everybody comes swarming in to break all of this up. And he's got a pistol on the table, so, he's really threatening. Mm-hmm. And these are the things that we lived with on an ongoing basis. And, over time, my mom finally decided that she was going to try to leave him. And, I had started my freshman year of college, and I was trying to help her get out. And 5 days before Christmas, I was doing something I wasn't supposed to be doing. I had spent the night at my boyfriend's house. Ooh. I was supposed to be at a girlfriend's house. And I wake to the sound of the phone ringing. And it's like, what is that? And then I hear a knock on the door. And one of my boyfriend's roommates says, "Hey, Joe, can you come to the phone?" And Joe gets up and he goes to the phone. And a few minutes later, he comes back in the room and he goes, "Ange, I need to take you home. That's your dad." And I was like, oh, crap. I am in so much trouble because he knows I'm not at my girlfriend's house. And so we get in the car and he takes me home, and I'm thinking, oh, this is going to be quite the, talking down and et cetera, the tongue lashing, the whatever you want to call it, right? So I get there and he opens the door. But he's not angry. He's ashen. He opens the door and he's like, "Ange, come inside." And I'm like, what's going on? And he says, "Come inside." And I was like, what do you mean? What's going on? And he says, "Come inside, go down to the living room and sit with your little brother." My little brother was a couple of years younger than me, so it wasn't like he was a little toddler or anything. Anyway, so I go in the room, go down into the living room, and Joe, my boyfriend, is still with me. And we go in there and sit down, and my dad comes in, and I said, "Come on, tell me what is going on. What is this?" And he says, "It's your mom." And I was like, what do you mean it's my mom? And he said, it's your mom. And at that moment, I knew what had happened. Just like I had been at a Christmas party the night before with my boyfriend, and just like I had been at a party, my mom had been at a party, a family Christmas party. Because remember, this is 5 days before Christmas. And so my stepfather had called her at that party, and he told her that night she had moved out, and he told her that if he couldn't have her, nobody would. And that morning, he made good on that promise. She was dropping my half-sister off at the babysitter, and he met her in the road as she was leaving, and he shot her. And twice, not once, twice, he actually chased her down. And, you know, I always knew that that's what he was going to do. And the thing is, my mom, she wrecked her car because she's backing away, trying to get away from him. She saw him as she's dropping my half-sister off. And she tells my half-sister, who was only 6 years old at the time, she says, go inside, do not come back out. And so she knew, you know, she saw him waiting on her. She knew what was about to happen because he'd already told her. And understand something, this is a man that was a deacon in the church. He was a firefighter. He was all of these things that society thought was good, right? But he had this other side that we saw behind closed doors. And he met her in the middle of the road and pulled his pistol out and started firing at her. And she slammed her car in reverse and started backing up, and she lost control of her car as she's reaching under the seat to pull the pistol out that my grandfather had given her because he knew also what was going on. She couldn't get it. And she hits the ditch, and immediately he's on top of her. And he rips the door open and fires point blank range at her. And she falls back, and then he shoots her again. And then he turns the gun on himself, and he shoots himself just kind of in the side. And when the EMTs and police get there, he's screaming, why'd she shoot me? Why'd she shoot me? Why'd she shoot me? They thought she had shot him initially. Oh, of course, they figured out very quickly that she had not. And he eventually did plead guilty. And, you know, so so we're dealing with all of this during the Christmas holidays, right? And Christmas morning, we're sitting there around the Christmas tree with all of these beautiful presents that my mom had wrapped and presents that were for her. And they were the last presents we would ever get from her. And, you know, I still think about, you know, the last picture I have of her was from her last night. And she's got this huge smile on her face because she loved Christmas. You know, she's with her family. She's finally getting out of this situation. And then she was 38 years old, you guys. 38 years old. And boom, taken away just like that. And so we got through the holiday, and, you know, right after the holidays, I'm right back in school, and, you know, life carries on. Wow. And, you know, for the next 30 years, we fought to keep him behind bars. He was up for parole 7 years after the murder. And so every few years, we were constantly having to remember this over and over and over again. And finally, it was during my separation, 30 years ago, that would have been 4 years ago. So about 5 years ago, we had a parole board hearing, and I walked out of the parole board hearing, and I got in my car, and I said, I can't do this anymore. You know, and friends and stuff were saying, that were attorneys, they were saying, Ange, I can't believe you guys have been able to keep him in this long because he's, you know, good behavior, blah, 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 blah. You know, and it was premeditated. I mean, this wasn't something that, you know, was an act of passion or anything like that. And in my head, I kept thinking, what do you mean 30 years and he's going to get out? That doesn't even compute to me, right? And so this particular day after the parole board, I get in my car and I'm by myself. You know, I'm going through the separation. I've just driven across the state to go to the parole board hearing. And, you know, you retell the whole story of everything, you know, his abuse and all of the stuff. You know, you relive all of it. And I just said, I can't do this anymore. Today I choose joy. Today I choose joy. And I actually posted that on social media. I found a meme that said, "Today I choose joy." Didn't write anything about it. There was nothing to, and I said, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not going back to another parole board hearing. This is in God's hands. I'm not doing it anymore. I can't keep doing this. I am not going to spend the rest of my life putting energy into this negative environment. And so that was part of my introspective work of the separation and divorce. It was like, you know what? You have been a positive person and you've accomplished a lot of things. At what point did you lose that? At what point did you decide that pushing forward wasn't the right thing to do anymore? That's not who you are. That's not who you were as a child going through all of that. That's not who you were as a young adult. So at what point did that change for you, Ange? And why did it change? And what do you need to do to get back there?
Yeah.
And so I started sharing some of my own vulnerability, because here's the thing. To get through all of that as a kid, I always put up walls. Every time you go to a new school, girls are mean. It wasn't like you could just go in and go, "Hi girls, I'm here." Right. They're like, yeah, whatever. And so you learn to put up walls, and you learn to have this air of perfection, and you learn to, never let your guard down, and you learn not to trust anybody, but you still got that smile on your face. And you learn to just do and do and do and do and do and do and do, and never show the crack in the facade. And I realized doing that introspective work that was one of the big things that I did wrong in my marriage. I never had that crack. I never opened up to that vulnerable side. I kept the walls. I kept everything compartmentalized, and I am still really good at compartmentalizing. I can put on the poker face and I can go in somewhere, and it doesn't matter what's going on. I can come in and do what's got to be done.
Yeah.
And my friends and family count on me to do that, because that's always been my personality, right? When my grandfather passed away, it was, everybody goes around the room, who's going to speak at his funeral? And everybody's like, not me, not me, not me, not me, not me. And I'm like, well, somebody's got to. I will do it. And so I'm the one who gave the eulogy. It was me who has, I'm that person. I'm that go-to person for those kinds of things. But when you are that go-to person, that keeps those walls up. And so I had to learn how to tear those walls down and still be that person that people could rely on. And as I started really working on that, I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. I actually am building connections, because you guys had never had to learn how to build connections before. I wasn't going to be anywhere long enough to have to worry about a connection. When you're changing schools at least once a year, and sometimes it was multiple times during the year, because there were a couple of schools that I went to for longer than a year. So when you know that that's going to be the case, you don't worry about long-term relationships. What is that? So, yeah, so I started really going back and thinking about, okay, well, who are some of the people that I could build those kinds of relationships with? Friends that maybe I didn't think about having a longer term connection with, but that was how they lived. I have people from high school, from my junior and senior year. By the way, my junior year of high school, I decided to go live with my grandparents, because I was like, I have to have some stability, because this is not going to be my life. I'm going to go to college. I'm going to be successful. I'm not living this life. So, there was that person somewhere, and I had to refine that person. Rediscover. I said that again. Refine.
Refine.
We are going to have to call up Merriam-Webster and put this in the dictionary now.
I think you're right.
So as I was rediscovering the real me, and a new and improved version of the real me, a new and improved version who could be vulnerable and strong and be open and yet still be whatever, is needed in those situations, right? And so as I did that, I realized that I had these opportunities coming to me from a work perspective. I had greater relationships with friends. I had better relationships with family. And I thought, I need to start doing this for clients.
Yeah.
How can I help clients tell a better story so that they better connect with their audience and new opportunities come up? And as I did that, then I thought, okay, wait a minute. So that's great from a business standpoint, but there are some individuals out there who need this too. And that was how Vulnerability Warrior was formed. I came up with this whole plan of helping people do that introspective work. There's a lot of piece parts that are out there. You know, you can Google all sorts of things and you can read lots of books, but what's going to take you through that process? You know, I start with them on, you know, once you determine that you want to make the change, what are those steps that you go through to get to that point? And anytime you're making a major change, there's a loss involved. There may be gain, but there's a major loss involved. And regardless of the kind of loss it is, you go through the process of grieving that loss, whether it's a human or a job or a home or a relationship. It's the same 5 stages of grieving.
Yeah.
And so learning to go through those phases, and, you know, with grieving, you don't go through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's a circular pattern. You know, it's the crazy 8. You're back and forth and all of those kinds of things. And
There's not a formula?
There is a formula. It's do all things at all times.
Lock in, hang on.
Yes, exactly. It's A plus B equals C, and anything can be any of those letters. So, you know, it's the program is, you know, giving resources of, okay, here are some books that you might want to read. Sure, that will help you. But here's some journaling techniques. Here's some breathing techniques. Here's what it looks like when you're going through transformation. Here are ways to learn to love yourself. Here are blah, blah, blah. So that's how it was born. It was, okay, here's what I went through when I was going through this process. Let me put this together so that other people can learn how to do it and have a one-stop shop to do it.
Yeah. That is
so that's
awesome.
how it was born.
Beautiful.
Yeah. We had the creator and founder of the Solace Club on yesterday.
Oh, cool.
And she was talking about this, basically the same thing that you're talking about, in the fact that we don't know what to say to someone who's going through something.
And there isn't anything to say.
No. And we don't, like, we kind of make it awkward because we kind of put a demand on them to put a smile on to appease us, you know, instead of allowing them to go through that process and whatever that process looks like.
Right.
And to have someone.
It's just sitting there with them.
Yeah.
They don't need you to say anything.
Yeah. But to have someone walk through that with them, like to have you on their team, so to speak, and have you walk through that. I know for myself, I didn't have that.
Right.
You know, when I was going through that, and I had to figure out a lot of things to get, you know, from there to here. I often tell the feeling that I had the next morning that I couldn't believe the sun came up because my world was over.
Right.
You know, how could God let the sun come up?
Right.
And from that to being so grateful for everything that has happened is like 17 years worth.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, I see people that, you know, and it's the same process, like I said, whether it's a divorce or a death or retirement or, you know, moving from your childhood home or, you know, what, I mean, it can be something really minor to someone else who's been through something that's considered major, because everybody's threshold is different, right?
Yes.
Who am I to say that the loss of an opportunity is not the same as the loss of a person for that individual? You know, because loss is felt differently for everyone. Yeah. You know, so it you know, empty nest syndrome. there are people who have a major grieving process with empty nest.
And
yeah.
Oh, I was just going to say, we get a sense of we're good at
Sorry
something.
about that.
Oh, that's fine. We get a little bit of esteem, self-esteem from being good at something, even if it's being somewhat good at surviving an abusive husband on a daily basis, or if it's good at raising kids and getting them to all the soccer practices, or if it's, even if we think we're good at our marriage and we find out that apparently we weren't so good, we have our identity and our self-esteem kind of grounded in this thing that's suddenly gone. And we have to, I love that you refound the you that wasn't going to relocate any longer. She disappeared, but she's logging back on. But we have to go through that self-assessment process and say, okay, I am still here and I am still me, and I have more skills than I did when I started this, and I'm going to have a deeper understanding than I did when I started this. And what pieces of me can I, maybe she talked about journaling, write down on a list and say, these are pieces of me that I want to nurture. I see her, she's back.
Okay, sorry. I don't know what happened there, you guys. It just went dark. I was like, oh no, what happened? So I missed what you were saying.
That's okay. We refound you.
Yay!
I think we need to add that to our vocabulary list, because I actually love that. I love that you refined.
Yeah.
You refined yourself. I love it.
I was saying, I love that you refound the you that wasn't going to relocate any longer. But we need to address, recognize that there are pieces of us still in here. This title or setup wasn't actually an identity that lasts. It was a situation that we might be mourning the loss of, but we're still here. The pieces of us that got us that situation are still here, but we're more skilled than we were when we started, and we're going to come to a deeper understanding than we do when we have right now when it's gone. And in the process, there are certain things about us. When I went through my divorce, one of the things that helped me the most was, you talked about journaling, and yes, I just made a list. What do I like? Because everything I did, even going back to school for the degree I chose, was wrapped around what he liked and wanted to accomplish. And I had to go, this isn't who I started out to be. And this time together hadn't been a waste. It had been a building of things in me. But at the same time, now that I had a choice, I wasn't heading that direction anymore. And it took a long time of the grieving process and that emotional roller coaster. But it also took some listing. What do I like? Hey, let's experiment with this. Do I like this as much as he taught me that I did? Oh, maybe I don't. Maybe I like something different.
Really.
Isn't it funny how we mold ourselves to fit situations whether we want to or not sometimes?
Oh, yeah.
It's one of the things that I talk with people about is, when you're making change, when you're making those decisions to change, people tend to do more to stay away from pain than they do to move toward pleasure.
It's true.
And we work so hard to not feel pain, and when you're having to make a change, there's pain associated with that, regardless of what the change is. It may be a change for the better, the better, but there is a pain associated with it. People who are wanting to change their eating habits for their health, so many people don't do it because they're like, well, I can't do that. I don't like those foods. They don't, there's pain associated with that, right?
Yeah.
But there's also pleasure that they're not looking at.
Yes.
There is a lot of pleasure to stay where they are, eating the comfort foods and eating the things that they are used to eating. And there's pain to move away from that. Mm-hmm. So it's easier to avoid that pain that's over here, right? Yes. Than it is to stay comfortable where we are. So to go through those changes on a conscious level is difficult because of that pain pleasure pull that happens. So one of the exercises that I get people to do is, okay, what are the pain and pleasures of where you are? Mm-hmm. What's the pleasure of where you are? Let's start with that. What are the things that you like about where you are? This is one of the things that people never get when they're doing their New Year's resolutions. You know, they're like, I want to make all these changes come January 1. Okay, well, you can do the changes at any point in the year. It doesn't have to be January 1, but let's go with New Year's resolutions.
I love your attitude.
And by the way, April 1 is a new quarter, so you don't have to wait till January. You can do this at the new quarter.
Can we high five you? I like long distance high
five. But when people are looking at New Year's resolutions, they're thinking, okay, this sounds really great. And then when it comes time to make those changes, they're like, oh, that's uncomfortable. That's pain. No. Yeah. You mean I'm going to have to go jump the rope or do a treadmill thing? Or I can't have my frappe latte, blah, 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 with 433,000 calories of sugar in it.
Exactly.
I can't have that.
Exactly.
No, you can't. So they look at that and then they're like, yeah, I'm gonna stick away from that pain. I'm not gonna do that. Yeah. Instead of saying, you know what, there's a huge amount of pain that's here where I am. You know, I have inflammation. I'm getting headaches. My belly hurts all the time. Not to mention the fact that I always have indigestion. Folks, indigestion is not normal. That's not normal. That's your body telling you something's not right. Yeah. But people think that those things, they get comfortable with that. And it's called, there's a phrase for it. It's called habitualization. Habitualization is whatever it is that's normal in your life, you get used to doing it. Yeah. And so it's comfortable. It doesn't matter how bad it is. It doesn't matter how bad the situation is. You're comfortable with it because it's your habit. It's your sense of normal.
And you know, our sense of normal, our brain fights hard to hold on to our sense of normal.
Yes,
because it feels competent and successful when it can go through the maze like the mouse in the right order and get to the end. And when we start going off track, off of what our habit is, then our brain starts to fight us on that.
Yes.
And we actually feel bad because something is tugging us back into the maze. No, the turn is this way, not that way. But we can overcome it because who's in charge? Our autopilot or us?
Yeah, I actually talked a little bit about this yesterday on my Facebook Live. I was talking about what do you want? Mm-hmm. And I gave the example of, you know, a husband and wife are trying to decide where they want to go to dinner. And, you know, the husband says, where do you want to go, honey? And she says, oh, I don't know. You pick. And he says, well, let's go have Chinese. I don't want Chinese. Okay, well, let's go have Italian. I don't want Italian. Well, let's go have a burger. I don't want a burger. Okay, well, I thought you said wherever I wanted to go was okay, but clearly you have a few ideas of what you do want. So what do you want? I don't know what I want. and here's the reason for that. Our reptilian brain, when it hears those kinds of questions, it wants to protect us. It goes into that protective mode. You know, when you get a question like that, it's going, oh, wait a minute. That means I'm having to get out of my comfort zone and I'm having to make a decision and it might not be the right decision. So I'm going to just stay right here. I'm just going to keep saying, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know. And the way you get around that is to go, okay, well, what is it that I don't want? It's much easier to answer that question of what you don't want. And so go through the list of what you don't want. If you're ever having that conversation about where to go to eat and you're going back and forth with, I don't want that. I don't want that. Okay, well, let's make a list of what you don't want. Because they can tell you that. They can tell you that just like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get to, okay, well, we've eliminated 35 different restaurants, and there are 36 that we can choose from. So there's one left.
Exactly. How funny. We have cereal.
Yeah. Okay, so there's the 36, and you don't want that, and we have Captain Crunch. Well, Captain Crunch oh yeah, we're supposed to not be having Captain Crunch because that New Year's resolution.
I got tickled because I was on that live video, but I had to get off because I had to go live again on the conference. Mm-hmm. But I was in between trying to watch that, and you said that, and I didn't get to finish watching it, and all through the night, I'll just be honest, all through the night I kept waking up and thinking, I just need to get my phone and finish watching that. I need to hear the rest of that.
Well, there was more to it than that.
Yeah. I've shared it with like Kristi and Tony both because it's like you guys got to get like to following Angela, and we got to hear the rest of what she was saying.
But it's so true. I mean, our reptilian brains try to keep us, it's just trying to keep us safe. And so I tell people, I'm like, okay, so thank it, pat it on the head, pat your little lizard brain on the head and go, you're being a good little lizard brain. You just sit right there. We're going to move into the frontal cortex now and take over. We'll be okay. And we'll come back to you if things get a little dangerous.
If T-Rex logic and some metrics and figure things out.
Yeah. If T-Rex starts chasing us, you can come back and help us avoid the saber-toothed tiger. But right now, we're good. I haven't seen a saber-toothed tiger.
Not this week. Oh, we're frozen.
Maybe.
Oh. Oh my goodness.
Oh my goodness.
It must have been the saber-toothed tiger.
It must have been.
Okay, you are hilarious to watch without sound. You're fascinating to listen to with sound. Without sound, just watching you choke the saber-toothed tiger was great.
I know, right? It's like, what the heck? Bad kid.
We have had so many technical difficulties. We have laughed that we have, just so you know, we have like a cheater down below the screen so that we can tell if we're actually on or we're just off.
That's awesome. I will tell you, I have had some of the craziest things happen when I've been doing live broadcasts before. I started a couple of months ago doing a daily Facebook Live, and it was so funny because a couple of years ago, I started doing lives with Periscope and that sort of thing. So it wasn't like this was the first time I had done lives. But I had this whole new setup, and I was using, a mic instead of just using my phone. And one time, just a few minutes into it, I was like, oh, you guys, I've been having some issues with my sound. So can you give me some thumbs up or some hearts or something to let me know that the sound is okay? And then I went, oh, my mic is on the floor. Hold on just a second. So I grabbed my mic and I'm like clipping it on my shirt. And I'm like, so now you can probably hear me a little bit better.
One of my favorite things about you, I have to tell you, I mean, you're beautiful, you're funny, you're brilliant, you're all of those things. But one of my favorite things is just how, you're tenacious. Even with your mic on the floor, you didn't stop and go, oh, well, I'll delete that. And you just kept going.
Oh, heck no. I wasn't going to delete that. I'd already been going for 15 minutes. I was like, no, this is good stuff. You guys just put your ear a little closer to the speaker. You got this. Come on. Work with me.
I want to tell on you because I think it's totally cute, because I will tell the backstory to what you did this morning. This was a today thing. We're in a group together. We're learning some things and trying to grow. But I laugh because I'm well over 2,000 videos.
Uh-huh.
I have done a ton of videos, but every time the live button comes on these, I go into panic mode. And when I went into panic mode, I mentioned that in this group that I don't know why that is, that it just comes up in me. And, and here's the spanker for me. The advice you gave me was the same thing that I tell my masterminders, that if you're nervous, don't say you're nervous, say you're excited.
Yeah.
And here I am talking and saying, I'm panicking.
Yeah, you're not just nervous. I'm in panic mode. I got that lizard brain going nuts. It's like running on a little treadmill, just going, that T-Rex is right on my behind.
And it looks like a big red button.
It's like the mouth of the T-Rex.
Exactly. See, at least you get what I'm saying.
Oh, you should have seen me practicing my my little tagline thing. It was hilarious. I've worked with a movement coach and that kind of stuff for speaking on stage and all. And yesterday was it yesterday? I can't remember. A couple of days ago, I don't remember when it was now. But I was working on my tagline, and I'm walking around. And when you're practicing that kind of stuff, and you've probably done this before, Kim. You do it in all sorts of different ways, and you're supposed to embody it, right? And you're supposed to be doing it, like doing all these different things while you're doing it. And I have a really hard time sitting still anyway. If you watch my Facebook Lives, I rarely do them sitting down. I mean, like this is crazy for me to have to sit this long because it just does not work really well. I'm like this big ball of energy. And so I'm walking around yesterday and I keep doing it. And I just start laughing at myself so hard, which is exactly what I did when I realized that the mic was on the floor. I just bust out laughing and I'm like, you guys are awesome for still being on here with me.
I love it. Well, I want you to tell the advice that you gave me though this morning, because it was priceless, really, because it is a mind shift. I mean, your whole program takes you on a mind shift.
Yes. Yes.
You're shifting things inside which come outside.
Yes. Yeah. And the last thing that I said to you, I said, how about rather than saying you are in panic mode, you say, you know what? I'm really excited and I'm getting endorphins. Let's just keep going with this because endorphins make me feel good. Or I'm becoming this beautiful butterfly. All these butterflies I'm feeling in my stomach is representative of the butterfly I'm becoming as I transform from a caterpillar. Think about it that way. The butterflies are really representative. And I use the butterfly emoji, of course, because, you got to have the illustration.
Especially for a princess.
Yes, exactly. Tim, you will love this. I actually did a Facebook Live using one of the Facebook Live filters with the tiara.
Oh, did you?
Yes, I did. I actually did a couple of them. I did a short one saying, "Hey, I'm going to be going live again in a little bit." So there's just one that's like 3 minutes long, and then there's one that's about 30 minutes long, and I'm showing how to make my morning routine beverages.
I love it.
And I'm like, look, you guys, isn't this awesome? And I'm all sparkly.
I love it. Well, and one of the things that I think I instantly loved you when I met you was that fact that you don't have to be perfect, but you are definitely sparkly.
I'm sparky. I may not be sparkly, but I'm sparky. That's for sure.
You're so funny. Well, but to come through what you've come through, and I want to make sure that we're running out of time, but I want to make sure we end on the note of the truth is you've been through so much.
Yeah.
You've been through so much, and you didn't let that keep you stuck. Not for long.
There was a while that I was stuck, but I didn't realize I was stuck.
Yes.
And once I realized it, I was like, something's got to change, which is actually how the whole conversation with my husband started. I came home one day and I went, something's not right here.
Yeah.
Something's not right. We have to make some changes. And it turned out he was okay with being stuck.
Yeah.
And I wasn't. And so, then things start falling apart because it takes two. Everybody kind of has to go together, right? But yeah, I mean, and the thing is, it's interesting because people love to talk about status quo or being stagnant. Here's the thing. A stagnant body of water is dead. I argue that there is no status quo. Status quo is death. That is a slow death. You're either growing or you're dying. There's no in between. So when people talk about, the economy is status quo, or my job is status quo, or my life is status quo, that's just a slow boat to death.
Yeah.
That's not going anywhere. There is no status quo. To me, that's a false argument.
Yes.
Well, we can learn from our own biology. We're either building new cells every day or we're decomposing.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're not using your muscles, they're atrophying.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll go work out when I get done with the conference.
Come on, Kim.
Here's the beauty. Laughter is great for burning calories and working our abs. I mean, it's great. You're getting a workout right now.
We have so much laughter going. I think I should be skinny. Love it. I absolutely love it.
I have a new plan. It's laugh your way to being thin.
We need to get that coined for you.
Laugh until you refind your abs.
Yes, exactly. It's the refinder.
Visualization.
It's the refinder. The refinder of my six-pack. It's the six-pack refinder.
That's good. I already put in the comments, if you wondered why I was looking down, I was posting those vocabulary words so I would not forget them. I am going to use those. I love that.
Here's the thing. I have never used the word refinder before. Where the heck did that come from?
And 3 times. 3 times in a row.
I know. Goodness gracious. Let's not get hung up on stuff today, ladies.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you for everything you're doing to help lots of people, but I want to personally thank you for helping me because I'm not going to be stuck and I'm not going to go backwards. I'm going to be refining myself.
Yes. Hashtag refinder.
Exactly.
Hashtag refinder.
Wait just a second. Let me just handle that right now.
Hashtag refinder.
Okay.
I think we need to make a meme.
I'm into that.
Hashtag refinder. I'll be like this, and you can put the word right below it.
I love it. Well, thank you for coming on, and I thank you for making us laugh. But thank you for sharing because it is so important. People can, get to that point. Now, what is your website? Do you have your program on a website where they can find you, or is it on Facebook or?
Actually, okay, so my Facebook page, you can get to right now. I am in the process of redoing my website. So AngelaWStillwell.com actually will take you to my Facebook page. But if you want to get on the email list for Untapped Strengths, you can go to untappedstrengths with an S.com, UNTAPPEDSTRENGTHS.com. Woo!
I love that you have to think about it.
I was like, wait a minute, am I missing any letters? Because that would be a problem. And if you do get on the email list, know that there's actually a PDF that you'll get if you get on the email list, and it's how to tell your story. And the reason that I have historically started with that is because storytelling has been since the beginning of time. It's how people connected. And, when you're working on your relationships, whether it's in business or your personal relationships, being able to tell your own personal stories is how you do that. That's how you build those relationships. And, I'll have some people go, well, Ange, I don't have a story that's like your story. Good. You're blessed.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Have you ever been in the grocery store and the woman in front of you had 3 children and she was $20 short? And maybe you picked up that extra $20. That's a great story to tell.
Yeah.
Or you help someone change a tire. Or you hold the door open for an elderly person and they just get this huge smile on their face. You tell that the right way. Oh my goodness. You can connect in ways that with the simplest stories. Stories.
Or you help a princess get over herself.
Yes, help a princess transform from a caterpillar into a butterfly.
That's right. That's right. Well, everybody that's watching, I hope you go and connect with Angela. She is obviously so fun and so amazing, but she does have so many gifts and talents that she uses to transform people's lives and to help. So do not waste this access. I say this all the time. If we are giving you access to people we know, don't waste that opportunity from fear or from whatever holds you back. Take the step to connect, because if you connect, man, you just will not regret it. We don't regret it for sure.
Yeah, you just have to take that little baby step. Actually, that was the other part of the Facebook Live yesterday, because I said make the list of what you don't want first, then make the list of what you do want, and then figure out what's that next little baby step.
Oh.
What's that next little baby step?
We're still watching it. We're still going back and watching
it. Yeah. But that's what it was. I mean, take the little baby step. Figure out what you don't want, figure out what you do want, and then what's one little teeny tiny thing. And then once you do that one little teeny tiny thing, go back and look again. What was it that I don't want? What is it that I do want? And don't focus on the don't want, because the universe will give you that in a heartbeat.
It's right. It's right.
So get that out of your system. Then go to what you do want. And then what's the next little step? And then do it again. And the next little step. And then do it again. What's the next little step? Before you know it, that one little step has turned into 10, into 100, into 1,000. And now you're a mile down the road.
Absolutely.
And you look back and you go, wow, look at how much ground I have covered. Don't compare yourself to anybody else, but look at where I have been.
It's great.
Just little baby steps at a time. Little baby steps.
If it'll let me, I'll put the link to that video in the comments. I don't know if it'll let me, but I will try to do that for you so that they can connect that way too. Make it easy. Sure. Make it easy. But thank you for coming on and being such a blessing.
Thank you for having me. I'm so glad this worked out.
Me too, especially now that I know that you're not in California.
It was so funny. It'll be 10 o'clock your time. Huh. I'm just seeing this at 11:11 my time.
Okay, you just have to know princess problems. I mean, that's just one of my things. That's a time zone thing. It's like, especially when I think you're somewhere else.
I'm like, how's this going to work?
But we're going to make it happen.
I need a little time machine.
The rewinder can rewind.
We rewind it.
Yes, it's my rewinder.
Well, thank you, Angela.
Thanks, ladies.
Thank you guys for watching and being with us on the Hope to Hope conference. Please do connect. Please do follow. Please do go back and watch the previous sessions. Our next session is coming up at, I have to look at the
about 20 minutes.
Our next session is it's coming up.
It's at 1:30 Central, 2:30 Eastern, and 11:30 Vegas time.
My goodness, thank God for Kristi. My beautiful co-host,
Kristi Bridges for One Moment.
And I'm Kim White with the My Sexy Business team. Thank you guys for joining us.
Thanks, ladies.
Bye.